All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we want to give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash. Giving double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. It's coming back with another lesson. As you see, it says IUIC. That 2819 church. It says members left service and still have no idea of the definition of sin. But, you can't force the truth upon people, especially, bombarding them, with a microphone and, just being outrageous, man, going to churches, huddling up on the sidewalks on both sides, as people walk through, man. It's kind of antagonizing, man. But what they fail to realize is that, this truth is only for the elect. We are commanded to go out and preach the word, cry loud, spare not. But IUIC, man, they take it to another level. It's almost as if it's the military. Like you in boot camp and a drill sergeant is talking to you. That's the vibe that I get from IUIC. So let's take a look at this. This is one of the more kind of subtle videos, but women are easily intimidated, even if it's our women, or so-called black women. And Jake, they get emotional, which causes, problems, violence. So, you have to really be careful, man. The way they're headed, people are going to start taking their frustrations out on them, man. Especially if you're yelling at them, in a demeaning manner, instead of just preaching the word, man. Yahweh Shem Yahushua will send whoever he wants to hear the word. The elect is going to get it, man. You can't just bang the truth in these people's head. Look at this Jake hair, man. He'll probably be accepted in IUIC with his hair like that. But let's get into this video, Salakia, and get some scriptures.
That's wrong. Sin does not mean, it's not a Greek word that means missing the mark. The Bible defines itself. Let's see, Michelle. Let's see why he don't like this so much. Come on.
1 John chapter 3, verse 4.
Read.
Whosoever committeth sin.
We're talking about sin, right? Sister, you know what sin is? We read about sin right now. What is it? Missing the mark? Come on.
Transgresseth also the law.
Does what?
Transgresseth also the law.
So sin is transgressing. You know what transgressing means? What transgressing means? Breaking. They tell you don't cross the yellow line, and you cross it, you transgress that line, right? So sin is what?
For sin.
You see them out there with the flyers, running cars, like they promoting a business or, man, it's just off. It's weird energy. Like I said, Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to lead whoever needs to be led to this truth. They're just doing too much, man. So let's get some scriptures. So we'll go to the book of Romans, chapter 3 and verse 3. It says, "For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect? Yahweh Shem Yahushua forbid. Yeah, let Yahweh Shem Yahushua be true, but every man a liar, as it is written. that they might just be justified in thy sayings and might overcome when thou art judged. So, you know, whether these people believe that they like to stress the color, which that is major, especially when white Jesus has been pushed on us all these years. But you still have people that don't believe it. And that one guy, what's his name? Ty Jackson or something like that. He seems to think the people in the land as we speak are, as a whole, are the true people of the true chosen people. And he has no clue, so you can't really force the truth on him. But you have a lot of people out here in the world, man, that with that mentality, and a lot of them sitting in the Christian church, man. Doing church blitzes is just off. It's like I said, it's weird energy, man. Just go out to the highways and hedges, preach the word, man. Be instant in season and out of season. And Yahweh Shem Yahushua will bring the elect, forth, man. All you doing is fishing, So, let's see. We're going to continue on. Man, definitely ready to get out of here, man. Prophecy kicking off. Things happening in the world. And they doing church blizzards, man. Totally off. This is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 4. We'll start at verse 3. It says, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. So, you have many people that come up against this truth. Like I say, if you go into a Christian church, man, you already lost the battle. The majority of those people in there are in there for feel good reasons. They don't care about the truth. They're just doing what make them feel good, man. They go out Saturday night, committing all kind of sin, adultery, who knows, man, but they go to the Christian church to make themselves feel better about what they've done the night before, the week before, which is totally a waste of time, man, because they're worshiping really an idol, they're making themselves feel good when that's not what it's about. If you come to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, if Yahweh Shem Yahushua brings you into the fold, into the truth, you're going to be held accountable for your actions, man. Whatever they may be. The punishment is going to be fitting for whatever you do. So verse 4 says, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. Esau Edom, man, has pushed white Jesus out there, told these people that, it's okay to commit all kind of sins. You're covered by the blood of Jesus. Jesus died for your sins. The law is done away with. All types of crazy stuff, man. And the people have fed into it, man. And they really believe it. So to come with something totally opposite of their belief, they seem to think you're crazy. That's why they always mention being a cult, black Hebrew Israelites, like it's some foreign, detestable thing. But, they just use that, to bring a negative light upon us, man. Like you say, those trigger words. But ultimately they're just unbelievers. And Esau Edom has corrupted their minds. All right, verse 4 says, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Mashiach, who is the image of the Most High, should shine unto them. So, hey, they're blinded. They can't see Yahushua Mashiach. They see Jesus Christ. So they'll never get it, man. So ultimately they're gonna end up being destroyed. And that's just the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. You know, he don't want them. Let's see. We'll go to the book of Baruch, chapter 2. You know, and we'll go drop down to verse 30, of course. You know, these are scriptures that we all know. You know, hey man, that's the beautiful thing about these scriptures, man. You know, you read them, and every time it's like the first time, man. You know, you get the same feeling, I must say. You know, it's a beautiful thing, man. You know, and the majority of these people don't have a clue what's going on. The majority of these people will never know the truth, man, on this side, which is, you know, hey, that's heavy, man. You know, that the Lord has, you know, imparted this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding upon us, man, to really get it, you know. But, hey, we still got a long way to go, man. All right, this is the book of Baruch, chapter 2. Not no 30 years, not no 1,000 years, you know. Not nothing like that, man. You know, hey, 5 max, Lord willing. All right, this is the book of Baruch, chapter 2, and we'll start at verse 30. It says, "For I knew that they would not hear me because it is a stiff-necked people," speaking of the Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. "But in the land of their captivities, they shall remember themselves." You know, all around the world, man, you know, throughout the four corners of the earth, this truth is going out. The elect is being awakened, you know, and hey, is buzzing throughout the earth. Things are happening, man. Prophecy taking place. You know, the elect is coming forth. You know, this truth is irritating these unbelievers and scoffers, mockers. Man, you know, it's undeniable. Verse 31, it says, "And shall know that I am the Lord, their power, for I will give them an heart and ears to hear." You know, even if, you know, you're going to have people that's not of the elect that wake up, you know, that know they're Israelites, but still going off, you know, 2/3. You know, some of the 2/3 are gonna be claiming that they're Israelites, you know, but they're not doing the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. You know, whether they fronting, you know, or whatever, you know. It says, "And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity and think upon my name, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai." You know, the Father in the name, you know, of the Son, man. You know, you can't get to the Father without going through the Son, you know. So it's all about Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, man. You know, that's the true name of the Lord. Let's see. Shalakia. It says, "And return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the way of their fathers, which sin before the Lord." You know, and that's what we're doing, man. You know, reading the scriptures, going back, looking at the histories, you know, reading, understanding where our forefathers went off, so we won't make those same mistakes. You know, the things that were written aforetime were written for our learning. You know, and we're learning from the things that were written, man. You know, that's what it's for, to learn and guidance. You know, guide your way to be able to endure to the end. Let's see. Verse 34, it says, "And I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it. And I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished." You know, so this is not speaking of those people over there now, you know, with a Israeli government, you know. No. This is speaking of the true children of Israel that will return to the land when the Lord take them back. Verse 35, it says, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them and be their power. You know, where's the everlasting covenant with those people that's over there now, man? They getting bombs rained on their head right now. It says, and they shall be my people, and I will no more drive my people out of Israel. Salakia. People, I will no more drive my people of Israel out of the land that I have given them. You know, and if you look on the internet, man, you have people, a mass exodus out of the land of Israel right now. They're being driven out of the land right now, you know, by Iran, you know. And, you know, I don't know if Palestine is still, you know, doing their thing, but the Iranians are running them out of their land, man. So these are not the people, clearly. But, you know, with that being said, this was just a quick lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. You know, this is strictly for the elect, man. You know, IUIC stay going on. They don't know the name, and they don't push the elect. So, with that being said, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rekakadash. Shalom.